high as 24%. However, since the start of the pandemic, these numbers have increased. Next slide. Currently, many shelters and other assisted housing programs do not allow animals on their property. People end up walking away from shelters because they would rather stay with their pet than to give them up in order to have shelter. Abandoning a pet is a major barrier to youth services and is emotionally draining to an already vulnerable population, which sometimes pushes potential participants to live in locations not meant for human habitation. Pets provide warmth, security, companionship, and normalcy. People learn responsibility, and pets also give them a purpose. Studies show that 15% of the owners reunite with their dogs after surrendering them, while 60% or more are left in animal shelters. It's easy to see why there's a reluctancy to surrender a pet when entering a shelter. Many individuals would rather stay with their pet than to have a warm bed, shower, and food. Next slide. The intent of the program is to allow homeless shelters to reduce barriers for those individuals experiencing homelessness with pets. By working together and making accommodations for pets, we support both ends of the leash and bring individuals into shelters who would otherwise wish to remain on the streets with their pets. This program hopes to improve quality of life to humans and their pets. Next slide. This second round of the Pet Assistance Support Program is authorized by the Budget Act of 2021. The available fund is approximately $10 million. The program offers grants to existing shelters for crates, kennels, food, and basic veterinarian care. Additional covered expenses are liability insurance and staffing relating to those services. Next slide. The Paws NOFA was released on February 25th, 2022. Applications are due 1 month from today on Friday, April 8th. Award announcements will be made in June 2022, and the encumbrance date is June 30th, 2022. The expenditure deadline is June 30th, 2024. Next slide. To be eligible to receive funding, applicants must be a nonprofit organization, city, or county. The shelter needs to be constructed and in operation. The nonprofit organization's primary mission must be to shelter individuals experiencing homelessness and authorized to conduct business in California. Applicants must commit to having rules of conduct and responsibility regarding pets and their owners. The shelter must provide crates and kennels or other means to ensure the safety and well-being of pets and humans. In addition, pet food must be provided, and veterinarian services should include, but not limited to, spaying and neutering, vaccinations, microchip, and behavioral support. Next slide. The Paws program grant to homeless shelters will be awarded as follows. The minimum grant limit is $100,000 and the maximum per applicant is $600,000. The grant size is determined by the amount of funds to be expended as shown on the operating budget and in the funding gap. Next slide. In addition to meeting the requirements in the NOFA, minimum requirements include an agreement that funds will be expended by June 30th, 2024. Provide a detailed narrative that explains how animals will be sheltered, either with crates, kennels, or other means, how food will be provided for the pets, and provisions for basic veterinarian services. Applicants must provide the types of grants and operating subsidies secured for similar services at the proposed project site. Be sure to upload documentation for the funding sources, such as commitment letters. Also include rules of conduct and responsibility regarding the pets and their owners. You must include liability insurance and a plan to connect with animal protection organizations should there be a need, as well as a plan to meet all relevant state, municipal, and local ordinances and laws. Include at least 1 year financial statements for the shelter to document financial feasibility. Financial feasibility will be determined by the department based on an evaluation of operating subsidies, support, and other revenue to be committed to the project. Lastly, we will need to see an operating budget that estimates how all funds will be expended. Next slide. Ineligible expenditures include capital development expenditures and operating costs and services unrelated to eligible activities. And now I will pass it on to Josephine, who will explain the application process and scoring. Josephine, are you there?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, when I was on mute, my apologies, I'll start again. The application process. The Paws round 2 is completely different from round 1. That is, binders and other devices such as CDs or USBs are no longer accepted. The submission deadline is April 8, 2022 by 5:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Josephine, are you muted again?
Yes, for some reason it keeps muting me. Where did I leave off at?
You just started. How about you just start from the beginning?
Oh, I apologize again for some reason it keeps muting. The submission deadline is April 8th, 2022 by 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Anytime after that, the ability to submit will no longer be available. To apply online is via the HCD application portal, which is located on the Paws webpage. Please note the following. Applicants can list multiple projects on the application portal or amount necessary to fund shelters up to the maximum of $600,000. So if you have two or three applications, they cannot exceed the total $600,000 maximum. If you have a co-applicant, the co-applicant must be the same entity for each additional project. You can't have a separate applicant if it's for a different project. In that case, you have to submit a new application. The Paws application workbook will be accepted in Excel format only, and you need to provide one for each project. Electronic signatures and dates are acceptable. If you look on the overview page, down at the bottom, there's a certification. That will need to be signed and dated, and you can submit that page completed per each project as a PDF. Next, please. The application. When you submit attachments, please use the project tab with the naming convention. For instance, you have number 1 is the Paws application. And we'll like to kind of look like it when you're naming the file as one app and provide the project name. For this instance, like First Shelter. If you have another project, it'll be Paws, it'll be one app and Second Shelter, etc. When you have multiple documentation, please provide a description of the file. For instance, for the application documentation, it'll be for the applicant, it'll be 6 or doc bylaw. Number 6, or articles of organization, for example. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory when you name it. Just make sure that you follow our naming conventions. And number 17, the funding subsidies. Please make sure you list the name of the commitment or the organization for the commitment. So it can be like 17 commitment and continue of care or shelter plus, for example. Next slide, please. This is the Paws portal. I use this first because this is where on the Paws website is where you're going to be linked to. So new accounts will need to register first. And can you go to the next slide, please? This is what the sign-in will look like for the sign-up in. And just make sure that you just follow, as indicated in asterisk, those are required fields to sign up. Your email, first name, last name, password. Check the box down at the bottom that you agree, and then you can log in. And once you do that, it'll take you to the actual Paws portal. Next, please. And this is what the portal looks like. As you can tell, you'll have the project, and you can hit the add button, which will bring up a field box, where you'll be able to put in the name of the project, the address, the county, and the amount for that particular shelter. And if you have multiple ones, you just click the add till you provide each shelter that you're planning to submit. Please note, right below it is the total proposed amount. You cannot exceed $600,000. If you try to submit, it won't allow you to. Next is underneath is the applicant information. For instance, I use HACLA, and next to it, you can select what type of entity that is. If it's a city, it'll automatically populate the documentations that you need to provide. And you put in the address and the county. Next slide, please, Becky. This example, I also put in a co-applicant as a nonprofit. If you don't have a nonprofit, you can just put, if you don't have a co-applicant, you can put none for, but I put yes for this one so you can see what it would entail. You put the organizational name, and if you put the type, which I put here as a nonprofit, you'll see down below the information or the documentation you will need to submit that you'll be able to either upload or drag and drop. So once you completed this, Becky, if you can go back up to the previous slide, you can submit your application right here once you have everything. Or if you're not quite ready yet, you can save the information and come back to it. Just note that it has to be in prior to the 5:00 p.m. deadline. And next slide, Becky. The application scoring. Applicants must achieve a minimum score of 70 points to be considered eligible for funding, with a maximum of 110 points based on the following. Program narrative, 18 points. Organizational docs, 10. Operating budget, 12. Capacity, which is your experience, 30 points. The measurable outcomes is 30. And the performance evaluation is 10 points, which means a total of 110. Next slide. The application criteria. The application we score competitively on the following: the project narrative that details the minimum requirements per the NOFA, section D1B, that's 3 points per category, which was 6, and I believe Nancy had mentioned that in her earlier slide. All pertaining organizational documents of the applicant and co-applicant to establish a standard agreement. You're going to need the authorizing resolution, You're going to need all your organizational structure, if you're a government agency, the TIN form. If you're a non-profit or other, you will need to provide the payee data form, which is a standard 204. Next, proposed operating budget that includes shelter, pet food, and supplies, veterinary service, liability insurance, and staffing for pets is a maximum of 12 points. The 3-year experience operating a shelter with a minimum 1 year, as documented with application finances, is 30 points. Next slide. Performance measures. This is a tab on the application workbook as well. Measurable outcomes includes the current number of participants assisted by the program and housed by the shelter, along with project measurable outcomes to be reported every 6 months through June 30th, 2024. That's 5 points per category. And the categories are, I'm sorry. One, general shelter operation measurable outcomes, the Paws program specific measurable outcomes, outcomes related to increased residential stability, outcomes showing increased skills and or income, measurable outcomes from tenant satisfaction survey, and measurable outcomes from the tenant exit survey. So that is 6, which will give you a total of 30 points. Next will be the evaluation plan that describes how data will be collected, tracked, analyzed, and determine the effectiveness of the project within the following. Please include the measurable outcomes and indicate who will analyze the data and perform and the performance evaluation of the PROS program. Next. Is the appeals process. If your project does not receive funds, you have the ability to appeal. And this is just a kind of a quick glance of what the appeals process looks like. First, upon receipt of the department notice that that an application has been ineligible, the applicant does have the right to appeal. The applicant does have the right to appeal a decision relating to, the applicant does not have the right to appeal a decision relating to another applicant's eligibility. The appeal process is solely to the decision of the department based on the NOFA that the applicant applied for. So for the 2022 NOFA, this is what this decision is based on. You can't go back to round 1 NOFA to make your appeal. The applicant must submit a written response to the department with substantiating documentation, and appeals must be received by the department no later than 5 business days from the date noted on the eligibility. And next, I'm going to pass this back to our program manager, Becky Moe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josephine. And so I think the purpose of the webinar today is to assist you with a successful application submission. And in order to do that, I do want to do a brief demonstration of how you can locate all the resources and how to complete the Excel applications. So with that, I do want to and take off the PowerPoint slides, and I want to bring up the HCD website first, because all the good information are located on the Paws website. You will also need to submit your applications on the website. So so this is the homepage of HCD website, and how you locate the Paws homepage. So there are 2 ways to do that. The first one is you can go to grant and funding, and you go to the program active, and that is like you scroll down and you will find the pet assistance and support program. That's one way. or you can just hit the search button. And here you can type in the Paws program and hit search. So you will see it pop up right there. And this is the homepage of the Paws program. So all the information on the page is helpful, but what I want to highlight today is the information under the current notice of funding availability. So you can just click here and it will direct you to the place. So what you can find here is the NOFA itself. So you will see all the minimum threshold requirement listed on the NOFA, and you will also get yourself familiar with the scoring criteria and all the HCD application intake process in the NOFA. I would say 70% of your questions will be answered by the NOFA. And the second one is the Excel Paws application. This is the documents that you have to complete and submit it on the HCD application portal. So the portal, the link of the portal is right here. So basically you can just click in and it will direct you to the page where Josephine just showed you earlier during the webinar. So you will need to register for a new account and then submit the Paws application in the Excel form and all other required supporting documentation on the HCD application portal. So on the Paws homepage, you will also find a template of the resolution, the STD 204, that is the payee data record, and the government informs. So these are the most current templates. So make sure you use the most current templates, because if you use an outdated template, we will have to return it to you and you have to redo the form again. So this is about the website. And I also want to do a brief demonstration of the Paws application. So in my opinion, I think this is a easy application. Just compare with all the other HCD loan programs. So you will see this is the cover page, and we have general instructions. And you will also see the checklist that Josephine showed on her slides earlier today. So the checklist basically serves as the self-check for you. So you will go through all the items one by one to see if you already get the documentation ready and submit it on the portal. So you can say, oh, it's included. And if it's not included, that means like the documentation is not applicable to you. But if it is applicable, such as the resolution that is needed for all the entities apply for the Paws program, you have to say it's included. If it is not included,
I cleaned the seat area.
can you mute yourself? Like we all can hear you. Well, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. So yeah, feel free to use the checklist on the application to do a self-check. Make sure you submit all the pertaining documentations. And let's go to the overview page. So on this page, basically HCD is trying to understand and get more details of the shelters. So you can put in the project name, the address, and then you want to describe the project or the shelters. So when you come down here, we also want to know who the applicant is and how we contact the applicant. And as well as down here is the co-applicant. So let's go a little bit further, you will see the minimum requirements. So for this section, we have 6 questions. And for each question, these are all simple questions. Basically, we want to know, do you have a plan to assist the Paws and as well as their individuals? And what I want to highlight here is you see the question is provide a detailed narrative. So last round, we do have some applicants, they only throw in some like 2 sentences or 3 sentences to answer the questions above. That is not considered a detailed narrative. So in order to hit the 3 points here for each questions, you must provide a as detailed as possible. So for the Paws round 2 is a competitive process. So you want to make sure you hit the highest score as you can. And for the scores, we only give you 3 points or no points. We don't give you partial points. So you do want to give as much details as possible to ensure that you receive the 3 points for each category. So this is the 6 questions. And when we come down here, Josephine also mentioned that we want your signature. So I want to be more clear on that. So this is on the Excel form. You want to turn this page, the overview page, into a PDF form and give a signature down here to certify. So it doesn't mean that you have to convert the entire Excel workbook into the PDF form, because we do want the Paws application in the Excel form. We only need this page. Turn this page into a PDF form so that we can have your signature down here. So the reason we want you to self-certify is when you see like there's some information you are certifying that you acknowledge and agrees the funds will be expended by June 30th, 2024. And by signing the PDF document, you also certify that your primary mission is to shelter individuals experiencing homelessness, and you are committed to meeting all the following conditions. So that's the reason we want to see your signature here. So yeah, electronic signature are acceptable. So, and this is a minimum threshold. Yeah, this is a minimum threshold requirement. So if you don't attach the PDF document with your signature, that is a hard fail. So that's about the overview, and let's go to the operating budget. So in the budget, the first thing I want to highlight is make sure you complete the budget for 2022, 2023, and 2024. The reason is, if you don't complete the revenues, the expenses, and the past eligible expenses for these years, the calculator for the maximum allowable awards won't work. So you can put on your resolutions or anywhere else on the application. For example, you want to apply for $600,000 anywhere on the application, but the calculator here only shows $0. Then HCD will not give you any awards because the calculators didn't give us any information. That's why you want to make sure you complete the budget for these 3 years. And so that is for the future budget. And for the previous year's budget, HCD has a minimum requirement of 1 year, that is 2021. So for sure, you want to complete the budget for the year, and as well as submitting a copy of the financial statement for the year. So in order to meet the minimum threshold requirement for the previous year, you will need to complete the budget on the Excel form. That's one thing, as well as providing a copy of the financial statement for the year. So if the shelter operates more than 1 year, let's say it also operates in 2022, 2020 or 2019, that's even better, because each year you will, if you are able to provide a budget with the financial statements for each year, that's 10 points. So you will receive 10 points, 10 extra points if if the shelter operates for additional years. So that's about the previous budget. And when we come down here, you will see HCD want to collect the information about all the other funding sources or subsidy information. I just want to to be mindful that if you put any type of sources here, like if you receive other fundings and subsidies here, make sure you also put these informations up here as a revenue, because that's count towards the revenue, and you want to make sure the budget you provided is accurate. So that's the operating budget. And the last page I want to go is the performance measurement. So I think Josephine already provide a brief introduction about the measurable outcomes. And what I want to highlight here, let me just zoom in so that you can see more information on the page. So you will see that we have 6 categories. And under each categories, you will see there are some examples. So when you complete the current outcomes, you want to describe the current situation of the shelter based on the examples listed here. So for example, you can say, you can describe like the number of participants assisted by the shelter is 50. And currently we don't assist any pets. And we have 20 shelter beds available, and the participants' average length of stays is, for example, 30 days. Depends on your situation. You put your numbers here under the current outcomes, and the projected outcome within 6 months of awards. So basically, what's your expectation of the shelters? So a good example will be, we anticipate to receive another 10 participants in the shelter, and we will be assisting 10 pets together with their owners, and the shelter bed availability will increase by 5%, and the participants' average length of stay is 45 days. It's based on your expectation, and HCD won't hold you accountable if in the future you're unable to meet the increasement. For example, you put here like everything will increase by 5%, and if you are unable to meet it, it is okay. HCD won't punish you, but we do want to see your expectation here. So, and what I also want to mention under the measurable outcomes is you need to make sure the outcome you put under the both sections needs to be measurable. During round 1, we have some applications came in saying something like the participants assisted by the shelter will increase. That is not measurable. So we want to see like the number of the participants will increase by 5%. That is the measurable outcomes. So, in short, what I want to emphasize under the measurable outcomes is try your best to answer, to list all the examples under the current and also the projected outcomes, and also be measurable, give some numbers there. And again, it's either 0 points or 5 points. That's why you want to be as detailed as possible. Otherwise, it's going to be 0 points. So, and go to the bottom, we also have 2 open questions. These 2 open questions, you're going to pick some outcomes you want to describe, you want to share with HCD from the tenant satisfaction surveys and the tenant exit surveys. These 2 surveys you already described at the top of the page. So basically, you're just gonna grab some outcomes, and then you can put it under the measurable outcomes section. So that concludes my my demonstration of the application, and I hope you find it helpful. So it is in my opinion, it is a very simple application. But if you need any, any further explanation, if you need any technical assistance, feel free to reach out to us. We are here to help. So you can send an email to the PAT assistance and support at hcd.ca.gov. So that concludes our presentation for today. And do we have any questions? I do see some questions in the chat. So let's see. Oh, how do you define multiple projects? So let's say, it's the same applicant, but you operate more than one shelters. So that is multiple projects, which means you operate multiple shelters. So the link to the Paws website, Nancy and Josephine, can either of you share the link to the Paws website, please?
Yes, I will send that out. Like before we go, if you want to continue with the chat, if not, we have two individuals with their hands up. Would you like to go ahead and allow them to ask their question?
Yeah, we can do that.
The first person, Sergi, can you please ask your question?
Yes. Put myself here to switch my camera. So my question is, when we go, let's go back to the operating budget. We are a current grantee for the House of Hospitality, and when we're talking about the shelter budget, are we talking about the budget for our Pass program or our general shelter budget? Because the Pass program is currently part of our shelter budget. In fact, it has been since 2020. And so we will, it won't show a decrease in the increase. You see what I have a sense of how this formula works.
Mm-hmm.
But you see what I'm saying? And last year when we did it, in 19 when we did this, we didn't have a Pass program. The Pass program was an enhancement, and the amount we requested was an addition. There was a gap created because we didn't have a Pass program. Now really what we're asking for is a renewal of our current program. Or do we need to increase our Pass? Do we need to increase the amount of our Pass budget to actually create a gap that will then create the amount that we're eligible to apply for? Sorry, somewhat convoluted question, but I think it's an important one.
Yeah, that is truly. So let's go to the operating budget. So since you are one of the awardees from round one, so I would say you can list the past program from round one as one of your revenue here, and then you can say like how much you use it towards the revenue for each year down on the top here. And then towards the bottom, you see you can also put the past eligible expenses for these 3 years. So that washes it off. And then like for here, you will put in the projections for the new awards. That's for round two, right? And it is the projections for these 3 years that's gonna give you the calculation of the maximum allowable awards. So it's nothing to do with the previous award. Does it make sense?
Well, so then what we would leave off in our projection, would we leave off the Pass as award because we're not sure we're going to get it to create the gap? Would we not then list the income? Because Otherwise, it'll just be a wash. Maybe I'm not understanding it. It'll, if we include in our projection, do we include our pass award that we hope to get?
Yes, you put it right here.
Okay. And we do it for 2 years, not 3 years.
That is totally fine. So you have, you can put it as 2 years, but basically you need to spend it before June 30th, 2024. So as long
okay,
as
so we would put it for 2 years. Okay. All right, I'll try and see what happens. I think that if I'm still not getting any, if I'm getting a 0, I'll connect with one of you. Okay.
Yeah, sure. You can send an email to the Paws program, and we are more than happy to assist you. We can schedule a Teams meeting for like 30 minutes to walk you through.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Sergey, if you could put your hand down. Next person is Alison Davenport. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much for taking my questions. I just a point of clarification. We operate shelters that we don't actually own the facility. We work with cities that own it. So I'm assuming that we would consider those cities co-applicants in this, and that they would need to provide us with items 9 through 15 on the checklist. Do I have that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, wonderful. And because we will have different co-applicants for each one of our shelters, we would then need to submit different applications for each one of those shelters.
Yes, that's right.
Great, thank you. I just want to make sure I heard all that correctly. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Okay, next person is Jenny Wiseman. Are you available?
I am. Thank you for taking my question. We have a unique situation here in Palm Springs, California. We are building what is called a navigation center for increased capacity and services, which will include pets. And I am the director of the Pet Ministry Palm Springs, so I wouldn't need a co-applicant because I am not a shelter. I am a rescue organization, but working with this navigation center. So my question is, we are looking at putting up transitional housing in the meantime, modular housing. Would this grant apply to help us get from where we are now with people on the street to 2 years from now, when the navigation center will be open, to have some immediate housing for people with pets?
That is a good question. Well, so the shelter is not constructed, is that right?
That is correct. We do not have a shelter on the west end of town here in Palm Springs. The nearest shelter is about 40 minutes away on the east side. So we are looking to build what is called in parts of the country a navigation center, which will provide services and shelter. But the process has just started. The land has just been acquired, and we are in the process of developing that. But we're already talking to them about providing the pet services. And adjacent to that property will be an affordable living community where we're going to kind of share the veterinary services and a lot of the things we do. So in the meantime, I realize this is kind of a long explanation, but it'll help you to understand. We are building modular, which goes up very quickly. So we are looking to build modular ADUs, which are about 100 square foot house, basically, with access to facilities where people could be housed with their pets. And we would like to apply for this grant because that can be a bridge between today and 2 years from now when the navigation center will open.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I think that is a great plan, but unfortunately, the minimum requirement of the Paws grant is the shelter needs to be constructed and needs to be in operation.
Okay, let me ask you this one, if I may interrupt you. We are working with another shelter that is the one on the east side of town. They've been in operation for a long time, so they could possibly be a co-applicant for us because
Yes.
so we could help them with their services in the interim to get through this transitional period and kind of set up the program there. And then when we're in operation, then we may qualify again in the future.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, that answers my question. And thank you for this program. It's really, I agree with you. I've had people tell me they'd rather be on the street than give up their pets. So thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
The next person is Jose Najera. I'm sorry if I pronounced your last name wrong. Are you there?
Yes, excuse me. Yes, I am. Good morning. We have our homeless shelter. We have our building. We have about 600 beds, and we operate about 9 different programs here: DMH, reentry programs, DHS, loss of funded interim housing programs, and then we have offsite ABH and other interim housing programs. Can we apply in one application for all of our shelters, or do I specifically have to break it down per program?
So it depends on how much you try to apply for. So let's say if you have 10 shelters, and for 10 shelters you only need $600,000, you can put all the shelters under one application. But if one of your shelter already needs $600,000, you will need to separate them, because one application can only, the maximum award amount for one application can only goes up to $600,000. So you can do either way, but it depends on, how much grants you're gonna apply for.
Okay, understood. And currently, the second question that I had was, currently we do serve emotional support animals, and we also have service animals that we support and that we have, and our that our participants bring into the building and the programs. Your definition of pets is different, and I wanted to clarify: is it just dogs and cats, or is it other pets? Because we've seen everything from fish, from a tarantula, from snakes. So I just want to verify what the definition, if it's just restricted to dogs and cats, or is the definition of pets being expanded here?
So I would say, normally when we say pets, we were, the first impression is dogs and cats. So we weren't thinking about snakes. But if you actually have a snakes in the future, we can talk about it to see if that actually is it's considered as a pet in the program.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, I wanted to talk about the operating budget. So given the structure that I described earlier, are you asking to put our agency funding sources and expenditures, or program? Program revenues, and because for example, I can have a program that gets $1.2 million a year, and then I can put the revenue and the expenditures, or you want me to list all of my programs with all of my revenue sources, and then accordingly all of the expenditures?
So what we want is the operating budget for each shelter. And so let's say if you have 10 shelters, we want to see the operating budget for each shelter, because it is the budget that really calculates how much the shelter is eligible for. So that's why we want to see individual operating budget. So,
Okay.
It's not about the program or the agency, it's about the shelter. We want to see how much the shelter receive as the revenues, and how much the expenses for the shelter will be for the future 3 years. And then the calculator gonna calculate to see how much you're eligible for the grant.
Okay, so then I'm gonna have to do an operating budget and fill out that tab, one for each
Yes.
shelter.
Yes.
Okay, can I create a different tab for each shelter or program and then submit it in one application? Or do I have to do a separate application for each one?
Again, it depends on how much you need it, because each application we can only goes up to $600,000.
Okay, got it. So then
Yeah.
if the tab doesn't, for all of my 14 programs, does not exceed the 600,000, then I can submit it in one application.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Jose, Becky, I'd like to mention when you talked about the pets are, if you look in the NOFA, it's for common household pet, or pet means a domesticated animal such as a dog or a cat that commonly is kept in the home.
Yeah, and I did see that. I just wanted to clarify that again, we see everything, and to the point of these funds, and I think it's greatly needed. And I'll echo what the other person said earlier. We see everything, and again, people don't want to leave their pets, and it's not just restricted to dogs and cats. So I just wanted to make sure that I threw it out there, because I'm sure we're not alone when it comes to the type of pets, quote unquote, that people want to bring into the shelter.
That's for sure. Thank you.
And thank you for the clarification.
Well, yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt, Josephine. So Jose, if that's still, if you still want to, I mean, like, you can send your like a list of all the pets you received from, like, the shelter received, and then, well, we have other not other teams within HCD that the same program from round one. So I do want to have their opinions on, on what type of pets, what type of animals are considered pets, and I will reply to your email.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay, the next person is Jenny Hornberger. Are you there, Jenny?
Yes, I'm here. So I have a question. I'm the shelter operations manager for Youth Shelter Navigation program. The shelter opened in 2021 October. Is that long enough for us to put in an application, or have we not been operating long enough? That's my main question.
So, I think the minimum requirement in the NOFA is a year, but let me circle back to that question, because I think you're halfway there, right? So how about you send an email to the pet assistant program, and I do need to seek advice from my upper management, and I will reply to you.
Okay, can I get an email address?
Oh, sure. Let me go back to the previous page of the slides. Let me see.
There it is, under resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
thank you.
No problem. And we will also post the questions and the Q&A documents on our website, which includes all the questions took place today. So we will post all the questions and answers in the future on the website.
Okay. Next person is Angie Escudero.
Thank you. I have a question. Our emergency housing interim shelter is going to be opening in August. So I believe we are not eligible to apply for that shelter, correct?
That's the same question.
Oh,
I mean, yeah, can you send an email to
yeah.
and I will reply to your email for sure, because
Okay.
it's like we have a 1 year requirement, but you're already in operation.
Well, we're not in operation yet. It's going to be opening in August.
Oh,
So,
August this
so we
year.
would not, I don't think,
Oh,
but
I see.
that is correct, right? That we could not apply for the funding, right?
Yeah, I'm so sorry to say
That's
that.
okay.
No. Yeah.
That's okay. And then Does it have to, it has to be an emergency shelter, right? It can't be used in like an rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing situation?
No, it has to be shelters.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next person is Terrell Deleuze. Terrell, are you there? Or Terrell? Are you on mute? Terrell? Okay, I can come back around. Next person is Jay Hill. Jay, are you there? Jay Hill, 7, are you there?
Oh, he's coming back.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Sorry about that. I had to reconnect. So just a quick question, and it's kind of piggybacking off of a few other questions. But what if I've been operating as a animal rescue for the last 2 years with expenses to show? Won't say as much revenue, but with expenses to show prior to forming my non-for-profit, which I'm in the process of doing that now. But I've been operating for 2 years already with rescuing and rehoming animals.
Yeah, so my question to you, are you working with a shelter, or you are, your organization only rescue animals?
Yes, we only rescue animals, but we do have a couple shelter partners, that we're working with that will be willing to go on as co-applicants. I just wanted to ensure for the portion of the animal side, for the rescue side, that if we've been, operating as a rescue, for 2 years with the operating expenses and reports and all of that, will we still be able to, apply? Like, we're in the process of actually getting the paperwork filed with the IRS in the next week for the nonprofit filing portion of it.
Yeah, I would think so. And for the operating budget, it's so we are not trying to to look at or review the operating budget for your organization. We want to see the budget for the shelter. So yeah.
So, okay. Okay. I think I got it. I'll follow up via email so I don't hold the call up, but I think I got a portion of it.
Yeah. So as long as on the budget for the for the projection budgets, as long as they listed all the expedited expenses, like the past eligible expenses on the budget for the future 3 years, and that will create a gap, and which will show on the calculator. So as long as we see that is a good budget. Did I answer your question, or you have?
Okay. The email.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Next person is Hillary Crosby.
Yes, thank you so much. I had a question on whether the grant is a reimbursable grant or if it gets paid out at the award.
It's a reimbursement. It depends, like, because you have until June 30th, 2024 to expend it. So basically you can, I think you can take all the funds at one time, or you can, each year you try to withdraw from HCD. But I think, because my team is working on the application intake, I'm not 100% sure on your questions. So how about you send a question to the Pet Assistance Support email, and I will try to I will try to find an answer and reply to you, but I think it's either way.
Okay, yeah, because that would be helpful information for small organizations. If you have to put out those funds first and then wait to get reimbursed at certain periods of time, that definitely makes a difference in your cash flow. So,
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
I'll send a question in. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, next person is Reagan Nantes.
Nantes. Yeah.
Nantes? Thank you.
Hi, I've got two questions. And one kind of circles back to the transitional living. I'm with the Salvation Army, and single individuals that are coming off the street for us go into a shelter situation, but families that are coming off the street go into what we have as transitional living. So it can be anywhere from 90 days to 18 months. In those situations where we're working with families coming off the street, even though the program is titled Transitional Housing, would this apply to them?
Transitional housing. Can I do that as a takeaway? I think yes, but I do want to get more clarification.
I've got a second question.
Yeah.
I think in the budget, because I was typing notes at the same time, so I thought of this after we had finished the budget section. It looked as though part of the budget section, you're looking for anticipated funding needs within specific categories like vet, food. I don't remember what the rest were. At the bottom, below the rest of the income and expenses for the program. If those are obviously projections. We've never done a program like this, so we're literally going to be guessing at what some of those costs are, within some kind of range. If we're off in those projections, can we move funding around?
Yes.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, send an email to us regarding your first question, and I do want to do a little bit more research, and maybe we can provide more clarification in the next round. I think that is a good question. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next person is Hillary Crosby. Hillary, I'm sorry, we can't hear you if you're.
Oh, yep, I'm here. Thanks for your patience.
Okay.
I've got two questions. One's technical. Having used this portal before, are there macros in the application?
Nope. Nope, there is no macros. There are only some simple formulas in the application.
Okay, and my second question, it will take us about a month to get on the calendar of our County Board of Supervisors, which will be past the deadline. What would be satisfactory to the reviewers in this situation? I mean, we could use the governing board of a partner because the county doesn't run a shelter, but we contract with, CBOs and partner with cities and things. Should we do that, go that route?
So no, actually, we still want to see a resolution from the city or the county. So, my recommendation is make sure you complete other parts, you complete other parts of the application, make sure you hit the points, because like if you don't provide the resolution, that is not a hard fail. It only means that you're losing 10 points there because you didn't provide a complete set of organizational documents. But if you're able to complete, like you are able to meet all the other scoring criteria, that still give you a good points. And I also want to mention that after you are sure your application is complete, submit as early as possible, because, in a situation where two applications have the same score, HCD will consider to award the application received earlier than the other.
What we
So
could
that's,
do, okay, thanks for that answer. I mean, what we could do is say we're on the agenda for, deep in May date or April date, and, maybe a letter from the chair of the board with, in support of it. I mean, that's informal, but it's just a government thing of a timeline. We can't circumvent that timeline. So, well, thanks for your answer. It's not what I wanted to hear, but thank you.
no problem.
Becky, can I
Becky?
suggest maybe they can provide a draft resolution?
Nope. We want the final resolution.
Okay. Next, Terrell, are you back? You have another question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So my question is, I'm a nonprofit who we have grooming services. And I'm partnering with shelters and a transitional housing organization. Does grooming fall under that, which is, everything from the basic needs to nail clipping, air cleaning, to flea baths, to, bedding and stuff like that? Because what we found is a lot of the people that are living in shelters, there's issues with that. And, sometimes they have to leave because it's causing, problems with, it's a communal based environment, and there's fleas, ticks, and all types of stuff. And there's no services provided. So would that fall under this umbrella?
I would say it's case by case scenario. I would say generally speaking, I don't think grooming is an eligible expense, but I do see the need for, at least for the cleaning, because, if they're on the street for a couple months on the year, we definitely want to, give a bath to the pet. So that is necessary.
Right.
Yeah, and also, like other, like the basic cleaning, grooming services, but but just not to make the pet pretty, to make it clean. That I think that is eligible expenses. It do depends on, what level of the services we go to.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, do I have any other questions? Someone like to speak up?
Hi, I've got a quick question again, follow up to that last one. So if I'm understanding this correctly, and I really appreciated the last question because it's not something that I thought of, but we operate shelters and facilities that have a large number of people. And if each one of those people potentially, I'm not saying they all would, came in with an animal, we're looking at over 100 animals on a facility. If we were, and I understand the possible eligibility for clean and maintain of obviously fleas and other, items that would cause a housing problem for us, just like, anything else of just people living in close quarters in large numbers. Where would we put that in? Because it sounds as though that's something that's up to this point maybe a little bit ambiguous, but there's not a line item for it. So where would I write that in on the budget?
I would say, like you can look some of the expenses under the food, pet food and supply, because you do need to purchase some of the supplies. And you can also look in some other type of services under the veterinarian services. It does depends on what type of supply and services you consider to provide.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I have Beth Forbes.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I just want to clarify, a single organization can submit multiple applications and end up receiving more than $600,000 1,000, is that correct?
Yes.
As long
Yes,
as they're
that's
separate
correct.
applications.
Mhm.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see any more hands. Is there anyone out there who would like to ask a question? We have till 11:30. Jorge?
I think I just have a quick question. I don't see your NOFA, maybe there's somewhere else, but do you guys have, is there established percentage caps for the eligible expenses?
The caps for the eligible expenses?
Such as, for example, not to exceed veterinary care 25%, staff expenses 25%.
No, we don't have that because, different shelters, they have different needs and they're all just different. They have different situations and we do want to leave flexibility there.
Okay, another follow-up question to that is, our city contracts for shelter services, but we do the animal control services here in the city. Just want to make sure that won't prevent us from applying.
No, as long as the funds will be spent on the shelter to provide all these eligible activities, and as long as the applicant is the county or the nonprofit organizations, and you meet all these minimum requirement, that is a strong application.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Autumn Lindberg.
Here we go. Thank you for taking my question. Just a quick question. Can you just show us the applicant's signature block? I want to make sure, is that just the overview page? I noticed that it's on the checklist. I want to make sure I have it down.
So you want to see the signature page?
Well, yeah, it's called the signature block on applicant's signature block on the checklist. Just want to make sure I have the right thing.
Yeah, so I think it's an item under item 8 and item 15 if you have a co-applicant.
Yes, I got that part. What does it actually look like? What does that attachment look like?
What does it
Sorry if
look
I'm
like?
not track. Yeah.
Let me see if I can a signature block. Let me see if I can find an example here. So this is a good example of a signature block. So basically, it's the name of the entity that is either the applicant or the co-applicant, and then you describe this like a brief description of the entity. It's either a nonprofit or a county or city, and then who is the authorized signer and the person's title. Did I answer your question?
Yes, that answered my question. Thank you. Much easier than I thought. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, next person I believe is Joel Hansen.
Hi, my question is about co-applicants. We heard earlier on the call someone mention that they operate a shelter that is owned by a municipality. And I got from the answer from that was that the municipality needed to be a co-applicant. Is that true?
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, the question is the applicant doesn't operate the shelter. It is the city or the county that operates the shelter. So that's why they need to partner with each other to apply.
Okay, then in my case, we operate the shelter. We're a nonprofit that operates the shelter, but the building is owned by the county. Do we need the county to be a co-applicant?
No, you don't have to.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for clarifying. Actually, that was my question earlier. And just to point of reference is we're in the same boat where we are contracted from the city, but we're the operator. They just own the building. In that case, they aren't a co-applicant. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, next person is Rochelle Colonian.
Yes, my question is, does a domestic violence emergency shelter qualify?
Can you say that again?
Yes, does a domestic violence emergency shelter qualify if they have to bring their animals for safety?
Safety.
Because we have male and female and children who need emergency shelter, and they often bring their animals.
Yes, I think you will qualify.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, do I have anyone else out there who would like to ask a question? We have 10 more minutes. Okay, I have Janelle Hickey. Janelle? Okay, can I have Jose? Would you like to ask the question again?
Yes, hi, sorry, I was going over it. Can you elaborate a little bit on the insurance? I know it indicated providing or having insurance, liability insurance. And I wanted to see if you guys have more details on the prescription on what type of policy or coverage that you guys are looking at.
Actually, we don't. As long as the insurance you purchase covers all the liability of having pets in the shelters, we are good with that. Because we list insurance as one of the eligible expenses because you know, we foresee some shelters, they need to upgrade their insurance to cover the liability of keeping pets in the shelter. So that's why we have it there, but we don't really have a lot of requirement on that.
Okay, thank you. I was just looking to see if you had anything specific in mind, but we do have, and it is covered under our existing insurance. But I just wanted to verify that it wasn't different from what you guys were seeking. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, the Paws program, because basically we want to assist, you know, the people, we want to lower the barrier. That's why, you know, we don't have a lot of restriction there. We do want to leave the flexibility to assist the shelters and the people they assist as much as we can.
Okay.
Understood. Thank you again.
Thank you. Next, Jay Hill.
Okay. Oh, hi. Can we have the shelter? I think this might have been already answered. I just want to clarify. Can we have the shelter, animal shelter off-site and the homeless shelter at a different location?
No. So the intent of the program is to keep the participants of the shelter and their pets together. So that's why, you know, if you are moving the pet shelter offsite, that's quite goes against the original intent of the program.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, purchasing the crates and kennels is part of the eligible expenses because we want the humans, the individuals and pets, they stay together. And at the same time, we want to keep the rest of the participants safe. So, you know, during the night, we will require the pets to be put in the crates and kennels for safety purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, Janelle, are you there?
Hi, apologies if this was already asked. I've been having some technical issues. Are organizations that are not traditional homeless shelters, but organizations that provide housing transition services, are those eligible to apply, or is it only traditional homeless shelters?
Only traditional shelters. I mean, at this point, maybe in the future, we will, if we receive additional fundings, we will be able to assist more, but currently it's only shelters.
Great, thank you. Some of the things that we were thinking about were possibly, services to help with pet deposits and things like that, because, finding housing for people that are in transition can be difficult when they do have a pet with them. But thank you so much for answering the question.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to ask a question? We have 6 more minutes left.
Yeah, I do see some comments in the chat, but I apologize. I lose track because there are just so many. So, if your question hasn't been addressed, please raise your hand. And I also want to mention that, if you have, if you are in a particular situation and you do want to talk offline, feel free to send us an email. We are here to help. And do we have any other questions for today's webinar? And we do have some takeaways for today. And we will try to, please send us an email and we will try to dig more information and answer your questions in the email. We have
yeah, Vanessa Cortez.
Hi, good morning. I have a question regarding the signature for the resolution. I see that a letter of designation is required for any designees that sign. If the signature is coming from our chief executive officer, then that letter of designation would not be required, correct?
Yes, it depends on how you word it on your resolution, because some of the resolution says, the chief, they say, for example, the president or his designee. If on the resolution you appointed the designee as the authorized signer, it's only in that situation we want to see a letter of designee. But if you didn't even mention about the designee in your resolution, then we don't need a letter.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Next, we have Zachary Mcarthur.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I think, Becky, you had mentioned it earlier. Forget what section it was, but you were saying that people in the past had been maybe putting like 2 or 3 sentences to, I think, maybe describe what they wanted to do. What did you say constitutes a like a detailed description? What was the, I guess, the criteria for that?
I would say, let me go back to the application. I think.
Or yeah, detailed is what it was called. Yeah, there it is.
Yes. So, we want to say, as long as you can, I would consider a full paragraph, because from round 1, we do have a lot of applicants. They provide a very detailed paragraph describing how they plan to house their animals and how they gonna how the pet's gonna be fed. So they have like they say, oh, in the morning we plan to do this and that, and every morning we do that, and in the afternoon how that will be handled. Stuff like that.
So we want it like broken down and like as detailed as humanly possible, I guess. As much as they can fit in that that section.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. Because we don't want to say, we don't want to see the answer like, oh, the animals will be fed. We purchase the dog food and we feed them on a daily basis, and that's it. That is not a detailed narrative.
Right. Yeah. Okay. They don't need to put like what kind of food, and I guess that can all be I guess laid out in the expenses and stuff like that too, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, they don't need to tell us the brand of the pet food, but we don't want to make sure that's they have a solid plan to
Right.
house the animals.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, even though we are asking for details, but things just happened. So if the plan doesn't really goes well and you switch the plan in the future, that is completely okay to HCD.
Got it. Okay.
So I think we only have 1 more minute, and I do apologize if we didn't get a chance to answer your questions, but feel free to reach out to HCD to this email address, and we are here for you to answer all of your questions.
Becky, this is Josephine. Can you let the stakeholders know once they receive award and reporting that biannually every 6 months, where they can find that on the webpage?
Yes. So this is the homepage, and after you receive the commitment letter from HCD, you will need to report. You will to do the biannual report to the state grant management. That's the other team I was referring to earlier today. So this is the application you need to complete. And if you have any question regarding how to complete the reports, you can send an email to the pass@hcd.ca.gov to that email. And for how you request the funds, you can complete this form and also send it to the pass@hcd email.
Okay, well, it's past 11:30, and that will conclude our webinar presentation. I sent out an e-blast earlier. This is Josephine, that we will provide the recording as soon as possible, definitely before the end of the month for sure, but hopefully within the next week or so.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. And we look forward to see your applications and working with you in the near future. Thanks again. Bye. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.